Okay, looks like we're ready to go here. Welcome everybody to the Digital Forum. We have 44 people today, 18 panelists. If for those of you that are attendees just watching, if you have good audio and good video, you can join the panel. We're always looking for added information and gaining more experience with the panel every day. So if you want to join, please raise your Zoom hand and we'll bring you in. Otherwise, today, the first hour, we're just going to do general discussion with different people's problems. So you have the Q&A down below that you can submit questions, and we'll, as a panel, try to answer them. And also we'll check to see if, I know there's a couple of questions that the panelists even have. And the second hour, we're going to do what I call winter cleaning project, and we're going to talk about cleaning up Lightroom a little bit, cleaning up your camera equipment, cleaning up your computer and hard drives to make sure that you're ready for this year's shooting, which hopefully once the weather gets a little better, we'll get back into the swing of shooting. I just want to, let's cut to that so we can get going. And let's see. So I can see the panel. Great. So I know we had, and let me just pull up my question Q&A just so that I can see that. Too many panels, need more screens. Okay, I had a couple of people. Well, Kathy was asking a couple of questions. One of them we started to talk about, and I thought, well, that's a good one for the Apple people that are in the group. I don't know how many people have updated to Big Sur on their computers, Apple computers. And have you had any problems with it so far?
I have not.
Debbie did move up, and she didn't have any problems either.
Okay. So everybody's programs are working. The main reason I haven't updated is I have 5 programs that won't work on Big Sur, so I haven't updated yet.
What kind of programs?
Well, I have an audio hijack that takes care of some of my audio stuff, which actually was working, but today it just broke, and I've got to get that fixed, although I knew about that error that was going to come. I'm worried about my printer because the printer is now 12 years old, and I'm not sure if the printer driver is going to work with the Big Sur. And then if it doesn't, I'm stuck. And it's a $3,000 printer.
Oh, wow.
And I have a bunch of small programs that I have used that haven't been updated for Big Sur. So I'm waiting a little bit longer. I'm going to start doing it on some of my machines when I get a chance. But everybody else has had good luck, no problems. So Kathy, you probably could update without a problem.
Okay, I'll try it.
It's been around long enough that I think they've gotten most of the bugs out. I don't upgrade to a new operating system till at least 2 or 3 versions in to make sure that it's working right. Because usually they have a lot of bugs in the beginning.
Big Sur was actually pretty decent, though. It didn't have too many hiccups. They're only on the second upgrade for it, so.
Yeah.
You might. I've upgraded my laptop, my MacBook Pro, and it's running fine on there. My Mac Mini is still back at High Sierra, and that's how old my Mac Mini is. So, but I haven't had any issues working between either one.
Okay.
I'm
yeah, What was that?
You might lose Microsoft Office when you upgrade.
Oh, yes, that you do.
Yeah, but it should come back. You should be able to update it to the, well, it depends. If you're paying the subscription fee, that Office should work.
Yeah.
It does.
The subscription works.
But yeah, if you have the old versions of Office, you're going to lose that.
Yeah, but the subscription definitely worked flawless.
Yeah.
Didn't notice a
Okay.
difference.
Okay. Kathy, I sent me an email about a power strip problem.
Yeah, what happened, I have my computer going, my new computer going, and I've been just putting it to sleep at night rather than turning it off. And yesterday I thought, well, maybe I should turn it off just to make sure everything is working all right. So then when I came back home later in the afternoon, I turned it on and the Apple icon showed up and the white stream at the bottom started to come on, and all of a sudden, poof, and it was gone. It was black screen. So I tried a bunch of different things, and finally I called Apple support, since I have that, I'm paying for the Apple support. And she said, try a different outlet. So I tried it and it worked. She says, okay, go back to the original outlet and try it, and it did not work. So now it's plugged into the alternate outlet. And everything, you know, I have one of those strips with a lot of different plugs in it.
Right.
And everything else seems to be working. And I'm wondering, does that happen where something just blows out like a,
Yeah,
similar to a fuse box?
I recently lost an APS backup power supply, and the battery in there it was probably 3 years old, and the batteries after a certain amount of time they just go.
Oh,
And
well,
once I replaced that, I haven't had any issues.
I was wondering what everybody else uses and where would be the best place to get it from like Amazon or Best Buy or whatever.
I don't think it's going to make a difference. It's electronics. I was going to say I've got a 10-port USB 3 hub, and I'm on my second one. The first one started losing some of those little ports. One of the 10 ports, some of those started not working, and eventually the thing crapped out. So,
And how old is it?
well, the first one I had was about 5 years old when it started crapping out. I replaced it, and within 2 months, the second one started having problems. So it was under warranty. So I sent it back, and I've had this one, so I haven't had any problems with it. But my point is that anytime you've got anything with multiple ports, it's not uncommon for one of those to go bad, whether it's a zip strip or even wall outlets go bad.
Or even a what?
Wall outlets.
Oh, wall outlet.
Yeah, you can have one go bad.
I get mine from, Best Buys or Office Max. I even do, Fleet Farm has some decent ones that are pretty heavy duty, especially with the surge protectors built in. You probably want to get one with a surge protector so that if you do get a power surge at the house, it doesn't go all the way into the computer. And that could be, if that's what you had, that might be that the surge protector partially blew out.
Oh,
But
He's doing his job.
yeah, it's protecting the computer. I always keep everything. Well, I keep all my stuff, and it sounds like a few of us here have it, are those battery backup systems. You can get that as well, which helps against power surges and helps if you get a power outage because it's got a battery built in, and then it will keep powering the computer so you can power down. Those are sort of nice in that it helps especially if you've get, like I do out here, we get power surges all the time, and my battery backup actually regulates that and keeps me from getting too much of a power surge. So I use that. The hard part is they're about $100 to $200 depending on how big a one you want.
And heavy to move around.
Yeah, they're heavy, but they'll have 10 outlets on the back. 5 of them are powered, 5 of them aren't. So that's one good way. But otherwise, I was just looking at the power strips I have here, and I've got some real cheap ones. I've got some expensive ones with power surges on them. The last batch that I'm working with came from Fleet Farm.
Oh, okay.
So,
I never thought of that place.
yeah, well, I figure if it's good enough for some power tools and other stuff, it might probably be good enough for computer equipment. But otherwise, Office Max and Best Buy are going to have some good ones too. They all have them at good prices.
Well, you know, today's equipment, a lot of times they have these very large plugs that instead of just a two-prong thing.
Right.
And there's not enough space on the one I have for all those things to fit in there. So I'll
The one
have
I've got, I have a trip light, and it has 3 that are every other space. So like for a power brick or something like that. And then it's got like 6 or that are regularly spaced apart, you know, for a standard
Oh,
tool,
okay.
maybe a 3-prong plug.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, Tony.
I have in multiple places. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You take out the screw of the outlet plate and then plug this into you leave the outlet plate on and just plug this in, and then the screw that's in the middle, you tighten so it doesn't pull out. Now the one I have, it's a 360 outlet, and generally Menards has them cheaper than Amazon. And there's 3 USB ports up, and some of the outlets on the side go sideways, so you can plug in those blocks and still have cords in them. And it's a surge protector and so forth. And I've had some for a few years now, and they've been working just really well.
Good.
But the one you want to get is the one with the 3 USB ports on top.
And what is the brand name of this one?
They're called 360. And the only place I've seen them in a store is Menards.
Oh, okay.
And Amazon doesn't appear to show the one with the 3 USB ports on the top. So, but like I said, on the 3 USB one, some of the side outlets are sideways or plugins, so you could put in the blocks and the cords face outward.
Okay.
Yeah, and I see like Ian likes the Belkin ones. I've got 1 or 2 of those. They work pretty well. And you could find them in a lot of different places. He's got a link in the chat for places to get it on Amazon. And, you know, I've done that. Menards and Fleet Farm tend to have a lot of good stuff. Mainly to help protect your TVs and all that, and the computers are just as sensitive. So
Menards has all kinds of setups for your iPorts and power supplies and everything like that. If you want an extension cord, you can get all the inputs on it too.
yeah, and there is in the chat you can get a whole house surge protection on your main breaker box, which wouldn't hurt. Sheldon Shaw said it cost him $250 and it covers the whole house. That especially if you're having power surges, that's probably what I should do to my studio here, because we have a power pole that just loves to get hit by lightning all the time. So
take the golf club off the top of it.
Yeah, I know. Well, I got mad at the pole and threw it up there, and so that's been a problem. But we also blow the breaker on half the time on the pole, which is really crazy. But
just remember, if you do the whole house thing in general, those require an electrician to come in and wire them to your box.
Right. But But the power strips work pretty well. I hate to say that I use way too many of them, where instead it'd be smarter to have the electrician just add more outlets in the house, in my room. But or sometimes I've done some of them myself. But yeah, you got to be careful doing it yourself. You got to know what you're doing. Anybody else have some questions? Anybody? Geez, come on, attendees. You must have some questions out there. We got over 32 people watching.
Well, I'm looking forward to the Lightroom talk because I updated my Lightroom when I got a new computer and everything came across except for the presets. And I didn't make a copy of them before I got rid of the old computer. So now I'm trying to figure out just what I had there.
Oh.
And I had also bought a lot of presets from Creative Live when I used to subscribe to their stuff. And I bet you that stuff doesn't work on the new one.
Yeah, they'll work. Boy, it's strange. Usually they'll come through. They should have copied over. But no. Otherwise, all you're going to have to do is start them from scratch or try to go back to the places that you got them from and see if you can re-download them.
Well, actually, I didn't use them that much, so I don't really care.
Yeah. I actually clean mine out pretty often because I don't use as many anymore. But yeah, so that is something that you can, you could back up. There is a way in Lightroom. Let me show. We can talk about that because I didn't have that in my original little talk here. But oops. Let's see. Let me share my screen here. I need one more computer screen. Ian, now I understand why you like to have 3 screens. Okay.
I'm technically running 4 right now, Jeff.
4 of them, huh? Jeez. Well, I have 1, 2, 3 going, but it's on 2 different computers or 3 different computers. So, but I've got to look here in preferences, I believe. You can store your presets with your catalog if you check this box right here, and then it will store it where you have your catalog, and you can also go and it will show you where the presets are. So if you go show develop presets, it goes to because I've got mine in the catalog, and let's see, they're in Lightroom settings, and this is where my develop presets are and all the different presets, and I keep them right with my catalog. That way, if I move my catalog, I've got all the different presets that I need. And I also make a copy of these periodically so that if I would lose everything, I've got a copy of the presets separately. And then it's the same thing. You'll get to the same settings pretty much because it's in this Lightroom settings. So depending on which one you hit, but that's all your presets. So if you just make a backup copy of this, you'll always have all the different presets that you'd have. And it's a pretty handy thing to have backed up, just in case, you do move. Or you can make sure you store it with the catalog, which is what I normally do. It does take up a little more space, but presets don't take up that much space. So that's something that you can do pretty easily.
Jeff, I'd like to share something if I may.
Sure, go ahead, Brian.
I started working on a project recently where I needed to scan some photos. I've been scanning for years. I've got a flatbed, and then I've got an Epson flatbed. It's a bit old with a feeder. So I went shopping, and for people that want to scan, they might be interested in this. So I found Epson has a fast photo FF680W. It's it can scan up to 8-inch document photos. It does photos. It does printed documents, and it's a duplex scanner, and so it scans both sides, which is really cool because on some of my photos I'll have annotations on the back as to where this was taken and when it was taken, and it's a pricey thing. It'll feed up to. It's got a feeder, and I forget it. You can load maybe 30 photos at a time, various sizes. You can go up to 8x10, 4x6s, any size. And the software is really good with it. I'm scanning about one every 3 seconds for photos. It's about 2,000 by 3,000 pixels roughly on a 4x6, and they're good quality. They're croppable, and it even does an auto adjust on brightness and things like that as it does each scan. And so I've gone through almost 2 albums, just working a couple evenings off this thing, and it's really great. It's pricey. It's available through Best Buy and Amazon, and it's a bit pricey. It's about $600, but if you have a lot of photos to do, it's amazing. I'm just so glad I got it.
Brian, when I scan photos, one of the biggest problems I have is dust on the photo, and I usually use canned air and that sort of thing to get rid of it. How do you deal with dust when you are scanning a large quantity like that?
Well, the photos I've been scanning, that's a good question. The photos I've been scanning so far have been in albums, in a sealed envelope. So haven't had a problem with that. That's not an issue on these so far.
Go ahead, Tony.
Brian, I have an Epson printer that I'm really disgusted with because it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cartridges. And when any cartridge runs out of ink, even the little black one, and I have a big black cartridge, the little black one runs out first, and then it won't print anything until I replace the cartridges. and even though we don't print that much, just to have to replace cartridges every maybe 3 or 4 months with very little printing because the little black one is out is just disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can just replace that black cartridge, Tony. You don't have to replace the colors.
Well, it seems that soon after I replace the black one, the color ones, which very little color printing, they get the yellow exclamation point and whatever, and they run out in a week.
Right.
So
well, it's definitely worth having some of these newer either flatbed scanner printers. Epson makes them, HP makes them, where you have individual color replacement that you can do so that you can just replace each one. I know the new Epson workforce printers have a really big black cartridge, and then they have 3 smaller color cartridges that you can replace, individually.
Yeah, well,
and that works.
This one is a scanner, fax, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's only about a year old.
Oh, well, that should have, then it doesn't have individual colors?
It does.
That you can replace?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But when I talk to the company, they say it's built like that.
Yeah, one thing you got to keep in mind with these printers, so even though you're not printing in color all the time, black will use some of the color. So it's not only printing off the black reservoir, it's also using some of the colors to make that black as well. That's how you get the different tones in the black. So Even if you have the printer set for print black only, it's still using some of those color cartridges.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone know of a reasonably priced printer that my previous Canon, if a cartridge ran out, it would say, this cartridge is out, continue printing? Sure, I did. And that was nice.
I don't know any printers that will let you do that anymore. They're also electronically connected that you just have to keep a extra supply of colors and that. I know for my Eps, I've got 2 Epsons and I've got an HP laser printer, and the 2 Epsons, I'm able to get the inks over at Costco, which saves me about $20-$30 a package. And I can then replace individual colors, plus their black cartridge is very big. And with that one, the nice part is when you do hit it for just black only, it's mainly using the black ink and hardly using the colors at all. It does use them a little bit, but you can go quite a long time just printing in black with it, because it's just filling in with some of the shades. But they're all that way. The only way around it would be to get a bigger one that lets you use the liquid inks that you can fill in if you're using enough ink. But those start to get expensive.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
They're actually going one step further. We just replaced our all-in-one printer, and all the printers coming out now are coming out with an ink plan where you have individual cartridges, but if you join the plan, you pay, say, based on how many prints you do a month, you pay a certain fee. And it's connected to their website. They monitor how much ink you're using, and when it gets low, they automatically send it to you. And they're all going that way. Now, you don't have to do that. You can not do that, but you're going to wind up buying those cartridges and replace them just like we're talking about individually. And you still have to replace them individually. The only difference is the plans seem to be cheaper. I took the $5 plan, which is good for about 100 copies a month, which for emails and stuff is about right. So for $60 a year, they're going to send me all the ink I need. And I know that usually on my old printer, I would probably have to spend $60 3 or 4 times a year to replace the cartridges.
Yeah. That's a nice deal.
It's an HP, but I bought it at Costco for $129. Seems to be pretty good. But they're all like that. Everyone that you see out there is all going to these printer ink programs. And I was leery about it. I've only been in it a month, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
but that's what it seems to be going to.
Can I just say that the printer, the program that you're talking about already has gone through one revision. When they first came out, they had a problem where it was free for a while. I don't know. The point was that they thought people were going to print more and they were going to make more money. So they've already made one change in the pricing structure. So that still may change. That may not be fixed. So be a little careful there. But I will just mention that there are these Eco Tank printers now that they run very large amounts of ink in them, usually for 1 to 2 years worth of ink. And then you can buy inks extremely cheap. And almost every company now builds some kind of an Eco Tank. I can't tell you if it's photo quality where, I mean, if you're buying a $3,000 printer for just photos, I'm not sure this would match that, obviously, because it's not the same. But for most people's printing, these Eco Tanks may be another way around it. You pay a little more for the printer up front, but the replacement cost of the inks is extremely low.
Yeah, we've seen a tiered schedule, what you can pick based on how many images you think your sheet you're going to do. This is just an office printer. We're not printing any images off of it. So, but you're right. They'll probably make some changes. With this printer, we got 7 months of free printing where before they start, counting really.
Right.
So
I was listening to a consumer show and they had just mentioned that people were upset because when they first got in the plan, the rules were one thing and the company has already changed those rules once. So I don't know quite how that's going to work in the future. We'll have to see what the companies do with that.
well, this particular one had no contract. You can bail out anytime you want. So as long as you can bail out, I think you're okay.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing
Go ahead, Audrey.
They keep track of how many pages you print.
Yes.
And if you have the cheaper policy or whatever you would call it, plan, and you go over, you get another 10 pages for $1.
Right.
And so, some of us who print occasionally a lot are at a medium level or a low level for me. And then we just let them charge us $1 a month for the extra pages that we print. Now, it's not like, they don't count how much ink you use, they count how many pages. So what happens with, wait, now where was I going? They send you the ink based on your usage so that you're getting ink whenever you need it, in advance of whenever you need it.
Right.
They send it to you up front. And I've been in it for, I'm sure, at least a year, maybe more. In fact, 2 years, because I did 2 Christmas letters. So I would recommend it. As far as the price is changing, not much. Maybe I don't have a free membership anymore, but I was going on the free one until very recently, if they changed it, maybe about a couple months ago.
Do you get to bank your unused stuff per month?
A portion of it.
Yes.
Yeah, because the one I'm in, if I don't use my 100 sheets, I got 40 left over. It rolls over into the next month. So if I use 120, I'm still good.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it only rolls back 1 month.
1 month?
Yes. You can't back up 3 months. You gotta use it within a month or two.
I'll have to look at that. I didn't see that part of it. That was a big thing that you could roll your stuff, but I didn't see anything about how many months you could roll.
Bill,
I've been with HP for a couple of years and that works pretty good.
Yeah.
And they're tied in with your Wi-Fi and everything. They look at your supplies and they can tell how much ink you have in your machine,
Yeah.
They send it out in plenty of time, usually.
Kind of scary.
Yeah.
Well, they're all monitoring us one way or another. So, but that's interesting. I haven't tried any of those plans. My office printer, I just buy the laser refills whenever I need them. But
They used to pay off. I used to print a lot, but not so much more. So I've gone down way to the basics, and it's still thinks that it's taken a while to get another refill, but I still think,
it saved me a lot of money.
yeah.
Over the years. Plus trips to the store to get ink in the middle of the, oh no,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's pretty good. Okay, I got a couple of questions here. We have Ken Bowman asked, I have a Topaz Sharpen AI and denoise. Why? AI, I guess I need more coffee. If you open a picture within the program, it is non-destructive. If you click on a photo and do open with, the programs only offer the option to accept after edits and the original photo is replaced. It is then not destructive. So I guess you only open a photo from within the program to make it non-destructive. Now, I got to admit, I don't use Sharpen or Denoise. Does anybody use that?
I got it just recently and been playing with it.
I have the old one, the Sharpen and the Denoise, but I don't have the AI.
I have them.
I use them within Photoshop.
I do know that if you hand them off out of Lightroom and then bring them back, you get a copy of the new enhanced version. So you don't lose your original raw, but you would gain another picture that would be coming from the program.
Right. Normally it would be. Yeah, you'd be using it last, so it wouldn't be as much of a problem. But if you use it just by itself, does that mean it's non-destructive in its own program? I haven't. I
Haven't
I
tried.
actually have denoise, but I've never. I hardly ever use it. So.
Yeah, you make an edit with it, and then it saves a copy. Usually, it's a TIFF.
Yeah, that's.
I also think that when it saves the copy, even if you use it standalone, I think it puts it back with when you set it up. You tell it you want a certain type of suffix.
Oh, okay.
So it might, it might be, DNS or whatever on top of your old one. So I think you still wind up with two files.
Yeah, and one would be non-destructive. But yeah, if you did it in Lightroom, you're going out of Lightroom, then it makes a copy of it and brings it back in as a TIFF. So that is certainly destructive, but by then you should be about at the end of the process anyhow.
Well, they suggest you use it before you do any of your Lightroom adjustments. Use it, do it first.
That kind of depends on if you're doing input sharpening or output sharpening. The input is the adjustment when you first bring it in. But if you're doing output sharpening for printing, that's a whole different, that's at the end. On what you're printing to.
I do know that denoise and a lot of the sharpening, they would prefer you do it first. Certainly the denoise, because it makes sense. Otherwise, if you're enhancing or doing contrast things, that would enhance the noise and make it harder to pull out later. But you put it back into Lightroom, my guess would be that Lightroom, even though it's using it as a TIFF now, is doing everything non-destructively over the top of that until you output it anyway.
Right.
So it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I got to admit, I've got it. I picked it up, but I only use it at the very end if I end up having a ton of noise in my photo by the time I'm done doing a bunch of things. So, okay. And then I got a question from Rich Hawthorne. May I keep my presets for Lightroom and Photoshop on an external solid state drive to save hard drive space? And yeah, you can keep that. You can keep actually your whole catalog and everything on an external solid state drive. And things will run just about as fast as if it was on the original computer. So I don't know if anybody else has tried it. You could certainly, it needs to be stored. If you check that box I showed, it's going to be stored with your catalog. So you need to keep it with the catalog. Otherwise, it doesn't know where to look for it. But I've moved everything. If I have enough space on a solid state drive, I keep it on a solid state drive. Anybody else have any comments on that?
Even if you don't use solid state, it's good to keep all your pictures on an external drive, isn't it?
Yeah, I always recommend keeping all the photos on an external drive, but I wouldn't keep the catalog on an external hard drive unless it's solid state, because of the speed of the spinning drives will make Lightroom work a little slower.
Jeffrey, I have a solid state drive, but I keep all my images on another non-solid state drive inside my computer, and I keep my catalog there. But you just made me think maybe I should move my catalog over to the solid state drive. But isn't most of the time spent when you're working in Lightroom, when you're actually doing in the development module, it has to go out to the hard drive to get information?
It brings the information in from the drive into Lightroom when you're working on the image, and then it's saving the instructions to wherever you have either the catalog, or depending on how you have the images set, so that it keeps it with each image. So that's where you get the speed slowdown. Most of the time it's just working with the catalog. So it depends where you keep the catalog. If you keep it on a spinning external hard drive, it works fine. I do that. I have done that pretty often. But it's going to slow things down a little bit. If you keep it on your computer, or I found on a separate solid state hard drive, those work so much quicker, it can speed up the process a little bit, depending on the speed of the solid state hard drive as well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to move mine over and experiment with that. I mentioned before the session started that I had problems with a hard drive this week. And one of the biggest difficulties in finding the corrupted files in Lightroom was to look at a large number of files. I did the find missing files, I think is the thing in Lightroom.
Yeah.
And went out and found all the files. When I did a check disk, it's in Windows, I did a check disk /fix. It fixed all the corrupted files, but it left some of my images with 0 bytes. And it found those, Lightroom found those, but there were some images that were corrupted that Lightroom couldn't read that appeared on the hard drive to have bytes, 30,000 bytes or whatever the normal size is. I had trouble finding those. And the biggest problem with all of this was the slowness of Lightroom going through all my files. So I think I'm gonna
that can be both the hard drive, and if you're starting to get a lot of corrupted files off of a hard drive, I would probably start looking at getting a new hard drive to replace it, because that could certainly be a hard drive going bad, or sectors of it going bad. And if you can find and open those files in Photoshop, sometimes you can help fix them if you can get it opened at all, and then resave it as a new file.
Yeah, I got all of my corrupted files except for one from my backup. Once I realized it was a problem, luckily I had a couple of weeks worth of backup that I could go back and get the old files from. But luckily only one file that I ended up deleting because it was corrupted, but it was one that was an HDR that I created myself, so it wasn't that big a deal.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
That would be my comment, as you know, if you store your images on an external drive, make sure that it is included in your backups, so that if your local hard drive goes down, you don't lose your images because they're on the second drive, but that's a secondary chance to back them up, to import them again, is from the backup. So I know in my case, I've got 2 internal drives and an external drive, and all 3 drives are in my backup routine.
Yeah, my external drive, I have a 12 terabyte drive that is, I just use it for backups for my other drives. And then I too have 2 internal drives, and one is a solid state. So, and it's pretty empty because it just has mostly my programs on it. And I realized when Jeff was talking that I could move my catalog over to that drive to speed things up.
Yeah, it will.
Jerry,
go ahead,
Jim. The backup drive to?
Pardon?
Jerry, where do you back the backup drive to?
I use Time Machine, and I have a 4 terabyte Time Machine.
Okay, so you do it to the web. Okay.
Well, no, it's a physical drive.
Yeah, Time Machine is a Mac backup system.
Backup system, yeah.
Well, it's a cloud, isn't it?
No. It's a compressed backup onto a physical drive, so that you can go backwards in time and reopen up files that were on your computer. Something that's sort of only on Macs, not Windows.
Right. And the advantage, I've been doing Time Machine for several years now, and I had my hard drive crash, and once I got the new hard drive in, I was able to just do a restore to the day that it crashed, because it had made a backup earlier that morning. And I basically didn't lose anything but maybe an hour's worth of work, which, well, that's no big deal. You know, it's not like I lost several months worth of data or files or anything like that. So, I mean, my point was just that if you keep things on an external drive, make sure that it's in your backup routine as well.
I just wanted to mention when you were saying that Lightroom was having some issues and running a little slow, that could be a sign of your drive starting to fail. Obviously, you lost some sectors already because some pictures were gone, but the couple other things that might show up would be that your drive every now and then disappears from your system. That might be another indication, but I had the same thing you were having, where it wasn't always quickly going to the drive, and that was a function that the drive was starting to die.
Yeah, I think I need a new one. I did notice that the backup was taking several hours instead of the like 15 minutes that it normally takes. And so I think I need to get a new drive. And I'm thinking about getting another photography guy that does tutorials was talking about the Western Digital has a RAID drive that you can, I think I'm going to check that out on Amazon, where you can actually exchange the separate hard drives outside. I think it's like a 12 terabyte or 50. I have, I think, 12 terabytes. And I think I'm going to replace that one. But I'm afraid that that's not the one that's going bad.
Yeah, that's always the worry is, but it sounds like if you're getting corrupted files wherever you're storing it, that's probably the drive that's going bad because you're losing sectors in the hard drive. And yeah, certain RAID ones, I'm not sure about Western Digital's RAIDs, but yeah, you could replace, pull one drive out and plug a new one in, and then it would copy back from the backup drive. Or you could just make the backup drive your main drive for your photos while you create a new backup as well. Yeah, Tony.
I have a TerraMaster 2-bay RAID system, which has been working really well. And I did have a drive go bad, and I just popped it out, popped in a new one. It re-mirrored everything. So there's actually 2 hard drives in there with the same information.
Yeah.
And you access it as just as an external drive.
Yeah. There's a lot of companies making those. Synology is probably the most popular one, but there's quite a few others out there. I use an OWC RAID that's actually a 8-bay RAID, so that I've got 4 drives backing up to 4 drives.
Jeffrey, when you set these up, I have never gone with the RAID drive myself because it used to be that they were difficult to get set up, but I guess the new ones, you just plug them in just like you do an external drive. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. My RAID is more of a manual RAID, but if I reset it up the way it really should have been set up, the program, once the program's installed and you have fresh hard drives, once you copy to the main drive, it just automatically keeps the other drive backed up, and then it also warns you when the drive is going bad and tells you need to pull this drive and replace it with a new one, and then it will go and re-back it up again.
Jeff, again?
Yeah, Tony?
Mine are networked wirelessly, so I can access them. But I have a word of caution for people who might see something about Plex software. Don't use it because you have to go through Plex software, and if you want to copy files off the RAID system, it is difficult at best and very slow to do it. And if you try to do batch files, copy like a folder or something, it compresses it into a zip file, and you might see that it's compressed and copied over, and then when you go to open the zip file, there's nothing there.
Yeah, and Plex is really meant for movies, for streaming movies live in your house, and not for photo backup and that. So
yeah, I found out the hard way.
yeah. Jim.
Can I just say also, if you get a normal kind of RAID system, it shows up in your operating system as a single drive. So you don't know what it's doing in the background. You don't see it as 4 drives or 2 drives or whatever system you buy. You'll just see it as whatever you name it. And in the background, it is dividing up the data in the way you tell it to divide up the data. There's different ways of storing it. But that's all done in the background. So you would just see it as a single drive.
Yeah. So they're getting a lot easier than what they used to be in the days past here. I'm doing it a manual way, only because I need to wipe all the drives and reformat them using the RAID software. And I didn't do that in the beginning because of the way I had my system set. But the new RAIDs, yeah, you have 2 drives or 4 drive RAIDs, depending on how many you need. And yeah, it keeps, you can use, what is that, RAID 1 is the mirrored one, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I'd have to look at them again, but there's one that just does mirroring, and that's probably what you'd need to use if you just need 1 drive. And then you just replace the drives. And they usually have software to check the drive to make sure and let you know if the drive's going bad with it. At least a lot of them do.
In fact, in the ones that I have, there's actually little lights that go on that tell you if a drive is going bad, or there's a little alarm that will go off. It'll buzz and tell you that something is wrong. And then you know that drive needs replacement before it would go bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So Synology is a good one to look at. Western Digital, I know, has something. I'm just not familiar with it. There's a lot of different RAID drives out there for us Mac people, and actually it works for Windows too. OWC makes a whole group of them, depending on how big you want to make it. Some of them aren't too expensive because you're also going to use a drive that's a little heavier duty than what you'd buy normally, because they do tend to run a little bit more.
So I just pasted a URL for the Amazon for the drive, Western Digital, that I was looking at. And I noticed that on there, it says RAID 0. So I wanted to ask you, you mentioned a moment ago, Jeffrey, RAID 1, and I don't know anything about those RAID numbers. Can you give a little information?
Yeah, I'd have to look.
But what does RAID 1 mean and RAID 0 mean?
RAID 1 that I use is the mirroring. RAID 0, I think, is 2 separate hard drives that don't mirror.
Which means that you can pull one of the hard drives out probably and just replace it with a new.
Well, in RAID 1.
In RAID 1, but not RAID 0. Okay,
right, because RAID 0, I believe, is two different hard drives that can have different stuff on them.
RAID 0 is called striping, and it writes some data on one and some data on the other, not all the data on one, so that if a drive goes down, it has enough on the good one to rebuild the one that went down.
So when you talk about the one, Jerry, I'm sorry, you mean you say one and the other, you're talking about 2 different physical drives?
Yes. It splits your file between the 2 drives, but it's smart enough to know that if one of the drives goes bad, drive B, for example, goes bad, drive A knows to rebuild the information that got lost. I don't know how it does it, but that's the difference between RAID 0 and RAID 1.
Yeah, I can speak to RAIDs.
Hey, okay, let's Bernard run it. Yeah, I brought you in because I thought you might have some good info. So,
Okay, RAID 0 is what they call striping, where you would have 2 drives, and it's just for writing one or on both of them that will write to the drive faster and will get information out of the drives faster. RAID 1 is 0, is mirroring, and that is where both information is written to both drives. So if one goes bad, you can replace it and mirror the other one, and then you'll have your information on them. Now, when you get into RAIDs 2 and above, you would need like 3 drives. And what that does is when you have, or it would write to the 3 drives, and if one were to go bad, you would just replace it, and then it would rebuild the RAID. Because what happens is you have your 3rd drive, which would be parity, and you would have like in computer, everything would be 0s and 1s, so that you would have the 3 drives, and it would write across all 3. So then it would know if you had a 0 and a 1, and then if one were to go out, then it would be rebuilding it that way if you had the parity set up for it. So when you get into the higher RAID numbers, it involves more drives and gets pretty sophisticated, and may not be something that you would actually have set up for your home system, which would be more of mirroring or setting up the external drives, which is a lot would probably be more towards mirroring. And you would need something like with the RAID with the parroting or parodying with the more drives, if you have something that is more sophisticated. And I think, for Jeff, that because your business is so mission critical, dependent on computers, that you would need the more sophisticated backup system.
Great. Yeah, Pat.
Bernard, you explained it pretty well. I used to work in this quite a bit. One thing I wanted to add about the RAID 0 is if you lose one drive, you lose everything. It's basically built for speed.
Right.
That's what the RAID 0 is built for. The RAID 1, probably for the layperson, is probably the best one because you're mirroring. You got a 2 gig drive and a 2 gig drive. If one of the 2 gigs go out, the other one is mirrored, so you have your information and you can replace the bad drive and have it mirrored again. I run a RAID 5 in my house, but I'm also running FreeNAS, which is a free BSD Linux server, and with the RAID 5, I have 3 disks on it plus a parity disk. And the parity disk keeps track of the other 3 disks. So I got about 12 terabyte worth of data.
Right, and when you set it up, you would have to, all the drives would all have to be exactly the same. You can't mix and match.
Correct.
So I have a question. I've been for years using this backup system across, and it's kind of a pain to make sure that it backs up every day. Sometimes it interrupts what I'm doing or whatever. And but the advantage I had when I had files go out was that I was able to go back. I found that some of the pictures were corrupted from the last backup, that it had copied some of the corrupted files, but I went back to the day where I uploaded them into Lightroom and I got the good copies. And so it sounds like if I had a RAID drive, I wouldn't be able to go back and get old files like that.
No, you wouldn't, because you'd have to back that up. The RAID drive is basically, well, if you're talking about a RAID 0, it's just basically saving it on a drive and mirroring it, so that if your one drive goes out, your mirror drive will take over, but whatever's on the drive, if it's bad or good file, it'll be mirrored that way also.
But the mirrored drive is not on a separate physical drive, correct?
It's two separate drives.
Physically.
Physically,
Yeah.
yes.
Physically, two separate drives, but all in one box.
It's not a backup system. It's a storage, like a second hard drive in a machine.
No.
Yeah.
But why would it not, if it's making two copies on two different hard drives, why would you still then need a backup system?
Well,
in case you
the
delete
only-
a file, let's say you delete a file and you want it back, you can't get it back now if you're just on a mirrored drive. You need a backup to get that back.
So I'm not going to be able to get away from making my backups
Correct.
by having a RAID
No.
system.
No. So the trick with the mirrored drives is that it's doing just that. It's giving you two of the same drives, where your backup drive, depending on how you've set it up, is keeping both the new data and possibly some of the old data that you can go back to. So that's the good part of the backup. So you're still going to end up needing some sort of backup. I do that with the cloud because it gives me 6 months worth of backup that I can go back to. And and we're going to talk about the cloud in a little bit here. I'll talk about that when we start this winter cleanup stuff. So I think we beat the RAID pretty good. Thanks, Bernard and Pat. All of a sudden I saw your hands raised and I thought, oh, I bet they know more about RAIDs than any of us. So that's good. I also have Clint saying that he doesn't back up his drives nonstop. He only plugs his in when he wants to back stuff up, then he unplugs the drives when they're done. And that's one way to do it. I'm going to show how I do my stuff, and people can agree, disagree, or come up with other solutions with it. So I have a number of different ways that I do it, and it works for me. I will say that it is not the end all of how it can work. But so why don't I start this winter cleaning project that I do? And so the first things that I was going to talk about, which we're already in, is how much could I get back if my hard drives would crash? That's the first question you need to ask yourself. I keep all my stuff in 3 different spots. I've got my primary photo backup, my backup drive, and then I have a cloud drive. And so my main drive every night backs up to a backup drive. Now, all I do is basically it's copying whatever's on my main photo drive to a backup. I don't have, it gets rid of anything that I deleted, and it just updates files that I've updated. And then I have actually a third set of hard drives that I update once a month, so that I know that at worst, I'm going to be a month behind on stuff if I would lose my 2 primary drives. But then I also have a cloud drive. I use Backblaze. There's also Carbonite out there for cloud drives. And Backblaze basically just mirrors whatever is on my photo drive, except that when I do make changes, it keeps a copy of those changes for about 6 months. So I can go back and actually pull down an image that might have gotten corrupted and can replace it with the backup. Now, I don't end up doing that too often, but it does happen. Like I had talked about, I have power fluctuations here quite often, especially in summertime with thunderstorms. I have one power pole that loves to get hit by lightning. And so I have surge protectors all over, and I have multiple backups. And I've had it before where I've had one set of drives burn out and had to go to my second set. And 1 year I did have my 2 primary sets burn out and I had to go to my monthly backup. Now, fortunately, I only lost about 3 days worth of stuff, so it wasn't a problem. I use Good Sync and Super Duper for backing up my drives. I do have a RAID set up. I got to admit, I don't use the RAID that's built, the software that came with it, because I had to reformat the drives to work with that RAID software. So I actually use Super Duper to keep my drives backed up, and every night it just does a backup setup. I use Good Sync, a different program to do my monthly backups, just because I wanted a second program in case the first program wasn't working right. I buy hard drives in pairs so that they're always the same size, and I replace them about every 3 years because they have about a 2-year warranty or a 3-year warranty, and I'll go just past the end of that warranty and start replacing them. Anybody else do something that's maybe different or better, worse? I'm open to any suggestions as we move along here.
Well, Jeff, I was just going to mention something I've done in the past is I keep one in my safe deposit box. So I've got a passport, and about every couple months I bring that home out of the bank and just copy just about everything onto there. It's a good sized passport, and then I take it back to the bank. And so that's one of my fallbacks, my ultimate fallback, you know, if the house burns down and stuff like that. So I've got not only my photos, but all my important documents. And then, you know, also I was looking for a photo the other day in Lightroom Catalog, and I just could not find it. And lo and behold, I remembered that I had a copy of it up on Zenfolio and was able to then download that photo off of Zenfolio. So that's also an ultimate backup. You know, it's not going to be the original image. It's going to be it's going to be resized downward. But
right.
At least I was able to get a copy of that image that I wanted for some of the work I was doing. So now, and so that experience just brought to mind again that is also another ultimate backup for certain images. In the case of somebody had mentioned that they lost something, and and because somehow it got corrupted or suddenly that image wasn't there, but in Lightroom, but Zenfolio offers me another backup. Yeah,
I never thought about that. I used to have a SmugMug account. Although I just dumped that one. But yeah, they had, SmugMug kept all my full-size files right on the site. And that was one way for my good stuff. But now I do this setup. Plus I have a few, I also, at the end of every year, I go through and I pull what I call my 5-star images, my top images, and I do put those onto a solid state hard drive that I store away. My third backup is stored off-site. Fortunately, I can store it at my house. I don't have to do it at a safe deposit box. So I have it at a house, and then I just throw it into a backpack, bring all the drives over to work and do it. But at the end of each year, I bring a solid state drive that's in my a fireproof vault and bring it back here, and I copy both a full-size JPEG file and a full-size RAW file onto that drive, so that I always have what I consider my best images backed up on another drive, just in case something would happen. So that's one tip that I would say is, these solid state drives are getting pretty inexpensive. You don't have to worry about, a spinning drive going bad. Although solid state drive can go bad as well. I just had one that went bad. I don't know if it's because it sat for a year and didn't get re-energized enough. what, but I've had that happen. Anybody else got something before I go on to Lightroom here?
I'd just like to touch back on Big Sur. I have not
Sure.
used it yet, but my laptop, I got a 13-inch MacBook Pro running Big Sur, and in Time Machine in Big Sur, you can run 2 different time machines, and it will recognize whether you can set one up as a daily backup and one as a monthly or bi-monthly backup, and it will recognize when it gets plugged in which one it is and what type of backup to do. So up to this point, you've only been able to use one drive to back up in Time Machine. Starting in Big Sur, you can use two backups, 2 different drives, and it will automatically recognize.
Yep.
So
that's good to know.
That's within Time Machine?
That's within Time Machine, yes. I haven't set mine up that way yet.
I always had 2 backup drives that had alternated, but I think it sounds like I've stopped using that feature. But it sounds like Big Sur might have more ability to tailor to your needs.
Yeah.
I always did 2 backups alternating one day, one the next day, or whatever. And I don't remember having to do it manually. It's been about a year because my backup drives kept failing.
More than one backup drive on older generations of the software that the software for the system, and it does look at more than one drive for me. I'm on, I think, still High Sierra on one of my machines, and it will use more than one drive, but it does not have that function that you were talking about where you could tailor how it stores. It just would look at the drives and then do the same thing to each drive.
Yeah, that's what it did for me, and I just didn't need 2 drives backing up the same data. But yeah, if it does it more, that you can do it once a month, because the only problem with Time Machine is it's constantly writing a backup, which is good, but it can sometimes slow your system down because it's constantly seeing what changes and is making a change to making that change to a hard drive.
Well, another thing you got to watch out in Time Machine, if you format so you can read on either format, Windows or whatever, Time Machine will not do anything but Apple backups format.
Right. Yeah,
I found that up the hard way. I set up mine so I take my pictures anywhere, but then I found out they weren't backing up.
Right. Yeah, it needs to be all Apple stuff when you do Time Machine. So, okay, I'm gonna move into stuff that I do with the Lightroom Catalog. So let me switch over to Lightroom. Let's see. So, come on, I need to. All right, do it this way. Okay, so everybody should be seeing the Lightroom panel. Now, a couple of things. I was listening, thanks to Ken Warning telling me about Terry White, had a nice video on YouTube for year-end stuff or starting the year out, and he gave a lot of good information, plus some of the stuff that I normally do every day. And one of the things that he was suggesting, and I've done it now with all my stuff, both business and my personal, is I've combined all my Lightroom catalogs into one. I was always working between a business catalog and a personal catalog, and I found that it got to be a real pain switching. And Lightroom nowadays can handle quite a bit. I now have over 324,000 images in my one catalog, and it runs just as well. So all you need to do to combine your catalogs would be to go under File and import from another catalog. Pick one catalog that's going to be your main one, and then import all the others. You could keep different catalogs if you want to. I know some people used to do it by the year, but these days, if you have everything on just even 1 or 2 or 3 hard drives, you might as well keep it all in one catalog, and it just gives you one less thing to be able to worry about. And you could see I have quite a bit. I'm going to collapse some of these down. I actually run 1, 2, 3, 4 different hard drives right now that are in this catalog. So, and I've broken it down. They're all 8 terabyte drives. So when I get newer ones, I'll start replacing them out. Some of them are getting to the point that I'm going to be replacing them soon. The other thing that I found, and I never thought about doing it this way, I use smart collections quite a bit. I don't know how many people know about smart collections, but what they are is you can tell them that you want, I keep like all my 5-star images for 2012 is right here. And then I do one for every year so that I can pull up all my 5-star images, which makes it a lot quicker for me to be able to find my top images for entering competitions or for looking for certain things. As you can tell, I have a lot of collections. That's down in the collection panel. But one that Terry White had suggested, and I think I've got it here. My problem is I've got so many collections. But I do one for 4-star, and I now have one for images to be deleted. And this really makes life easier than trying to go through and figure out what images I want to keep and what images I want to get rid of. And let me show you how this, I'll go to edit the smart collection so that you can see how I set this up. And then we'll set one up because I also, after I set this one up, I found a new thing to be able to add a conditional option to it. But in a smart collection, you can match all of the following rules. And so what you can do is you can pick the ratings. Now, I rate all my images 3, 4, 5-star. My 5-star are my best images. My 4-star are images that I'm going to work on. 3 stars are ones that I feel are worth keeping. 2 stars or lower are ones that I get rid of right away. And so generally I don't even use 2 stars. So what I did is I created a rating for 3 stars and less that didn't have a color label, because I do use colored labels to say whether I want to do something with them or not. And at the time, I didn't know about this new conditional one, but I also put that it is not a JPEG, it's not a TIFF file, it's not a PSD file, and it's not a video file. And that would rule out all the different files except for the 2 raw files, which would be RAW and DNG. And then I came up with one more where it has no adjustments. So it means I didn't do anything to this file. And when I created that and I hit save, it pulled up 83,390 files that fit all those conditions. So these files here are all ones that I probably could get rid of. They're poor files or ones that I just go, well, they were okay to keep, but I haven't used them. I might as well I will go through them all and decide whether I'm going to keep them or get rid of them. Now, since I saw Terry White's program, he actually had somebody speak up about, well, there's a conditional option that you can add to these smart collections. So let me create a smart collection from scratch, and we'll call it images to delete to. Now, if somebody has a question, you can go ahead and just ask. I can't see the panel, so I can't tell if anybody's going to have questions or not. So just, shout out.
Okay, I have a very simple question. Can you keep your Lightroom catalog on your main hard drive in your computer and have all your other catalogs or your pictures elsewhere? I've got my catalog on the same drive with my pictures external.
You can keep your catalog can be on your main computer if you want. That will make it work the quickest. The photos can be on as many different hard drives as you want. As you can see, I have 4 different drives that I keep my photos on. So you certainly, it doesn't have, the catalog doesn't have to be with the hard drives. I used to keep it with my main primary drive so that if I moved that drive to another computer, I had the catalog with me. So that would be the only reason that you might want to keep it on an external drive. Plus then it would also get backed up, which would be nice to have a backup of it as well. But it will run a little slower if you keep it on an external drive, unless it's on an SSD drive.
And you can't
does that help?
You can't keep it both places.
No, you can only have the catalog in one place.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much.
The other way that I have done it, and it gets a little tricky, is I put my catalog in Dropbox, and that way I can move from computer to computer and use that catalog from my Dropbox. But if it doesn't get synced up completely, it gets to be a problem. And sometimes if I don't have internet, then I don't get my catalog. So that's a problem too. So okay. So to create the smart collection, I do things by ratings. If you do things, you have pick flags, label colors, text. You have a lot of different options here. I'm going to pick is less than or equal to and 3 stars. So that's my first one. The next thing that I would probably do is that, did I work on that image? So if you go down to develop and has adjustments or has edits, you could use either one of these. And so say it has no adjustments. So that way that file's never been touched. Now, if you hold here, you hit the plus sign to add more conditions. And if you hold the Option or Alt key, you'll see that it changed from plus to a pound sign. And if you click on that, now any of the following are true, or you have all of the following are true, or none of the following are true. So here I can now say my file type is a DNG for my raw files, because those are the only ones that I'm really interested in. And again, file type and is raw. All the rest of the file types for me mean that I've done something with that image. So if generally I do straight DNGs, I don't do any of these, so I don't have to worry about them. And any of these generally mean I've done something with them. Other than I never get rid of my videos, because those I don't have as many of. I can get rid of those easily. And you can do any more things. So when it says matches all of the following rules, you've got ratings and adjustments. So anything 3 stars that have not been adjusted, and here with the conditional part of it's a DNG and a raw file, if I hit create, it's going through and looking, and it has found, this time with the new way that I set it up, 82,351 images that I can now start going through. And what I end up doing is I just use the X key and I look at every image to make sure that I see whether I want to keep them or not. And if I want to get rid of them, I hit the X key. If I want to keep them, I just move on to the next one. And I can go through all these images, and that's going to be my winter project, and get rid of everything that I feel I don't need anymore. I mean, I look at some of these, and at the time it looked interesting, but I go, I don't think I need this one anymore, so I'll get rid of that one and that one. Some of these may look interesting enough that I might look at them again and promote them up to a higher level, because some of these are pretty old. I'm looking at, these are from 2004. So they're already 16 years old, and I haven't done anything with them in 16 years. So who knows if I'll do anything yet. But so I'll go through and get rid of quite a few of them. And that's one way to be able to, free up some hard drive space.
Jeff, question on conditions.
Sure.
Can you use time as a condition?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And you could use time. That's how I pick, and that's how I also, you can do it in the beginning. And that's how I get my 5 stars for each year.
Oh, okay, sure.
I'll just go to edit it so you can see how it's set up. So for me, it's a rating of 5 stars. And then I use the capture date is in the range of the 1st of the year to the 31st.
Sure. Okay.
And that way you can pick any specific time period that you'd want. You've got is not, you've got quite a few different selections. You can do in this year. My problem was that once you get out of this year into next year, all of a sudden the collection changes. So I do in the range of, and that works out real well.
Jeffrey, thank you. I didn't know about that and an or in my collection. That's a really good feature. But one thing, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I didn't know about it either. And even Terry White, who is an expert in Photoshop and works for Adobe, did not know about this conditional part.
There's another thing that I discovered the other day that you might know about that speeds things up is under photo in the library menu, there's an auto advance. And if you change a property, then it goes on to the next picture, so that can speed up.
Right. Yeah, they'll let that's a great way. That's how I go through and I label all my images, and that's how I'll go through here and I'll look at it and go, well, do I want to keep it? And if I don't do anything, and like this group of images was before I was even rating stuff, I I might go through and say, well, I like this cloud. Actually, I'm getting to the point now where if I see birds that I like, I'm starting to cut those out. And here I've got a bunch of sailboats that I might actually want to keep one or two of these images so that I could actually cut the sailboat out. So I'll start marking these so that I can do that. And but yeah, if I hit an X, it's gonna mark it and advance it to the next one. So yeah, that works great.
So if you're using old images like that for composites, how do you label them?
I will, when I do a composite, I actually have a collection. Let's see, can I find it in here? I have two different ways that I end up doing it. I'm starting to create, because of all the stuff that's added into Photoshop and Luminar AI, I'm starting to add separate images. Right now, I just have like clouds for replacement, and I'll just put it into a collection so that I've got all my different clouds in one spot. I'm going to start one for birds and trees and other things, so that I have a collection for all of those type things, so that I can start adding that stuff in as I want to add a tree here or add a bird there.
Do you use keywords? I use keywords for that, and then I can search on different keywords.
Yeah, I could use keywords. I'm really bad that I don't end up using keywords that often. So I suggest it to a lot of people, but I never do it myself.
So when you're doing it like this clouds, for example, so when you're going through a folder and you see clouds, do you just say add it to this collection?
Yeah. I'll just drag it right to that collection, and I will probably end up. Right now, I have clouds just as a separate collection, but it's going to go into a collection set shortly with other items that I will start cutting out. Right now, I just end up searching for it. I have actually a page, a folder full of rocks that I use for different things, and right now I'd be hard pressed to find them, so I'm going to end up putting that all into a collection, and they're shot on a white background, so I can just pull the rocks right out of the background.
It might be a good idea to just select all the images in a collection and put a keyword on it, clouds, for example, and then have it as a keyword and as a collection. Yeah,
I certainly could do that. I do have keywords. I just, and my keyword list is pretty long, with a lot of different words, because I used to keyword. I just don't do it that much anymore. And you can see I got quite a few keywords.
I have quite a few, and I subcategorize them, and that's been my main way of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Collections. I like having both options.
I wish I was that organized. I just haven't been real good at that. But no, that's great. I mean, don't do as I do. Do as I say is, I think, the word for it.
The way you're doing it as far as collections, I use collections quite a bit, and I use the smart collections, but I'm not doing it as extensively as you are.
Yeah.
And it's a good idea.
It works out really nice for me. I do a lot of collections, and that's the next thing on my list was after you get done doing that one and start going through to get rid of your delete stuff. I also go through my collections. And after a while, sometimes I get a lot of collections that I don't need anymore. And so I tend to start going through, and I will look at and say, All right. Is there any of these that I can get rid of, like my Arch brochure collection, which was just stuff that I used to do when I was photographing remodeling projects and that. I'm not doing an architectural brochure anymore, so I can just delete that collection easy enough. And I'll go through and start getting rid of all these collections that I maybe don't need anymore, just to clean it up a little bit, because I get quite a few. As you can see, I make quite a few of them. And I will go through and clean that up.
Keyword
yeah, and here,
delete it though.
yeah. Oh, and I do have, here's my rock collection. So I photographed rocks because I was putting them into different things. And now with Photoshop being able to cut them out so easily, I'm going to use them for different things. I actually use them to do asteroids and planet things and that. So, so yeah, I've got a lot of different collections. So you can clean those up, get rid of ones you're not going to use. One of the other things that's good to do this time of year that a lot of people forget to do is to update their copyright information. So I go through and I need to edit my metadata presets for copyright. And I think that's this one here. And you could see actually for this one, you could see how far behind I am on it. I haven't updated this particular preset since 2016. So it never hurts to make sure things are updated. I always have right usage term of all rights reserved, no rights granted unless in writing. That covers you in just about every country and state around. I'm also using a new website instead of my old one. Make sure everything is correct so that people can get a hold of you. So it doesn't hurt to keep all this stuff up to date, because whenever I import my images in, I automatically select this metadata item. And probably what I'll end up doing is you can either save it as a new one or, you know, do an old one. Since I've changed my business name, I'm just going to change it to copyright. And hit done. So now whenever I import, I'll just select that in the import dialog as one of the things that it should do when it imports the files. And it will then put my copyright information on all my images as I bring them into import. And generally, most of my stuff is copyrighted. And you can see here, this is the one, my contact information. And let's see if yep. And this one, I had shot this one in 2007, so it was copyrighted back then. And so at least all that information is in the metadata of your file. You can also add the copyright symbol. If you noticed in there, I had the copyright symbol. Let me just get back to that because I forgot to show that. You can see there's the copyright for Mac. That is Option G. So they make it fairly simple to be able to add the copyright symbol. For Windows, it's Alt-Control-C should get you the copyright symbol. At least it works on my Windows 10 to get that, and for Mac it's Option G. So it's nice, easier to do that than to type out copyright on it. So just one other thing. We don't need to save that. All right, so that's pretty much the other thing that I do, if you haven't done, is, and especially too, it's something to do if your catalog is running slow, is you can optimize the catalog. This gets rid of presets, looks for problems, and will help fix things. This will normally be done whenever you back up your catalog as well. But if you're find that Lightroom's starting to run slow, you can always optimize the catalog. This will usually get rid of previews that are older than 30 days. At least that's what it does for me. So that's something else that you can do. I also tend to put a fresh copy of my catalog stored away at the beginning of every year. I've got a backup drive that I put it on just to make sure that I have something at the beginning of the year that I know is a working copy of a catalog, just in case something really strange happens and I lose everything. I still got a copy of my catalog. Any questions? So then the next thing that I end up doing after I'm done with Lightroom is I make sure that all my programs are up to date. I use a program called Clean My Mac, which I'll just bring up here. I don't really want to run a smart scan. Can I open it this way? Yep. Now, for me, what's nice with Clean My Mac is they do have an updater program that I can click, and it looks to see what programs need to be updated. This is a handy little feature. Now, this one's for my Mac. For the PC, I'm not sure if it has this capability. I also use Clean My PC, and I found that it works pretty well. And it will show me different programs that aren't up to date. And then I can see whether I want to update them. And it actually gives me the information about what's changed and whether I should update it or not. GarageBand, I can't update that because that update is for Big Sur, and I'm not running Big Sur yet. Tech2 Pro is one that I use to make sure my Mac keeps running correctly, and it fixes all sorts of problems, and it looks like it's got a bunch of new updates that I can end up doing. So if you don't tend to use certain programs, these three I don't use that often, so this is a way to make sure that they're up to date. So I sort of like my, Clean My Mac. It is on a subscription thing, but it does a nice job of cleaning up junk. It gets rid of system junk, mail attachments that can take up a lot of space. The malware is just a so-so thing. It doesn't work the greatest. I use something else for that. But it does run the maintenance programs and all that. And it has a nice uninstaller if you want to uninstall Mac programs. And then it can also show you large and old files. This one's sort of nice to use because you can see stuff that you haven't used or maybe programs you haven't used in a long time. You can go through and see, do I want to keep using it? And if I haven't used it in a year or two, maybe it's time to get rid of or move it to a different drive. So I go through that. I also go through and let's see, we can close this out. I also go through my applications and look at stuff that, and and make a decision whether I want to keep it or not. If there's something in here that I probably haven't used in a long time, I will get rid of it, or I will move it to some other place and if it's taking up too many hard drive spaces. One of the ones that I tend to go through is I have like On1 Photo Raw for 2020, 2021, and On1 Portrait AI 21. Well, that's now built into On1 Photo Raw 21, so I could get rid of this one. I also do that for Adobe. I still have Photoshop 2020 in here. I'm pretty sure that Photoshop 2021 now is running pretty solid, so I'll get rid of that one to free up some space. And I will look at anything else that's maybe getting old and remove that as well. Mainly trying to free up hard drive space so that I have as much room on that drive as I can. Because I do tend to buy a lot of programs or look at a lot of programs and not use them. And if I figure if I haven't used them for a while, I might as well get rid of them.
Hey, Jeff.
Yep.
You said you didn't use GarageBand. Neither do I. And I tried to delete it, and it won't let me delete it.
No, yeah, GarageBand you can't delete. That's about one of the few, because that's Apple's, one that they've got in there. As long as you haven't, what you can get rid of, I'm not sure how, is if you haven't added all the different stems, different soundtracks and things that it has, that you, I think, can get rid of and make GarageBand pretty small. Right now, let's see, where did it go?
I've never opened it or used it, so that's why I thought.
Okay, so then you're pretty safe. Once you start to use it, my GarageBand's actually even a lot bigger than this because I've got all the different soundtracks downloaded. I'm using GarageBand to create slideshow music from scratch. It's a fun thing to do, and it gets me around the copyright problems on YouTube. And actually, it's sort of a relaxing thing to do on a boring afternoon. I'll sit and just throw different tracks together and create my own music. So it can be a fun program, but yeah, if you're not using it, yeah, it's one thing that you can't get rid of. Apple won't let you do that. But so fortunately, you haven't added all the other stuff that goes with it. Let's see. Yep, I've gone through that. I also start to look at, first I make sure and I listen to my hard drives as they're running. If you start to hear clicks, strange noises, it could be that the hard drive is starting to wear out. I get one where you can hear it spinning, and that's when I'm going to replace it. If I'm plugging a hard drive in and out pretty often, I've gotten to the point where I replace the cables once a year because I find out that those cables seem to get bad after a little while, and that can be a problem. So the cables have gotten pretty inexpensive, so I replace those that I am plugging and unplugging all the time. How are we doing here? Whoa, I'm running longer than I thought. So that's what I do with my computer stuff. I check all the equipment over and do that. Let's see. I can stop sharing because I'm not. Okay. Did it stop? Oh, yeah. I don't know. I don't need to share. I got a new way to be able to get out of share screen, and it works so quick. I use a Stream Deck. The final thing that I end up doing, and this I don't have any photos of because I couldn't get to it, but my camera equipment. I pull out all my camera equipment, lay out all the batteries, I clean the body, the lens mount, the lenses. I check the straps to see if they're starting to wear. I've gotten sometimes to the point where I see straps are starting to wear out, and so I'll replace them. I check over and make sure that all the memory cards are emptied out and ready to go. Now, if you're still shooting, that's not quite as necessary, but I've got a bunch of older cards that sometimes I still have images on, so I make sure I go and put them in to make sure first that they're working in the camera okay. Second, then I just wipe them clean, and so they're ready to go. With the batteries, I try to make sure I put them into a charger once a month. I've got one battery that I didn't do that with, and the battery went to 0, and now I can no longer charge it back up. So that battery is now junk and it's going to be tossed. So I actually have a set of batteries and chargers laying out so that I constantly put my batteries in and recharge them. With my lenses, I check the front element to make sure they're not scratched. If they're scratched, I replace the filter if I had a filter on it. If I didn't have a filter on it, I might send it in for repair if the scratch is pretty bad. So that's a good thing to do during winter. With my camera bags, and I should say multiple bags, as everybody knows I love camera bags. I pull my camera bags completely apart, pull all my equipment out and put it on a table, check it over. I vacuum the bags out because a lot of times I'm at beaches or whatever, and you get a lot of dirt build up in those bags. It's a good time to clean them out, vacuum them. I actually reorganize them. And then while I have everything out of the bag, I check to see, did I use this piece of equipment this year or last year? And if I did, then I'll probably keep it. If I didn't, I'll put it into another bag to go, well, this is a bag that I'll bring with stuff that I hardly ever use but may need. Ken knows I bring a lot of those bags along when we travel, but it can be handy to have that extra stuff. But I get rid of a lot of equipment that I haven't used. I figure if I haven't used it in a year, I'm probably not going to use it. Although using last year as a judgment isn't going to be the greatest. I replace all my perishables. I've got lens wipes, non-rechargeable batteries, different little things that I'll replace and make sure that the bag is fully stocked up. I disassemble my tripod and clean the legs and all the fittings to make sure that it's ready to go. Re-lube the fitting area that needs to. I also use Armor All on the legs to keep them clean, and that helps get rid of some of the grit so that they open and close better. I go through, I've got a few cables that I have that I'll probably look at seeing if I need to replace them. Let's see. Then I go through and look at equipment that I've had that I might be done with and decide that it's time to get rid of and either try to see if I can sell it, or I'm starting to donate a lot of equipment to the high schools because high schools certainly are in need of old camera equipment. Especially our high school, Menominee Falls, is always looking for camera equipment for the students. And then I make a wish list of all the fun toys I want to buy this year. So, and try to figure out how am I going to afford to do this. So, yeah. You're muted, Gemma.
Thanks. Can I add one thing to what you said about the camera bags?
Sure.
When I was in Antarctica a year ago at this time, before they would allow us to land on Antarctica at any time, we had to take our camera bags, our coats and everything to the main lobby conference room and have them vacuumed. And one thing that they were really looking for was to vacuum the Velcro, because they didn't want seeds or anything to be carried onto Antarctica. And so that might be good for people even here in the United States, if you're going from one location to another, not to spread indigenous seeds around.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I like to clean up my bag, and that's why I pull everything apart. And it's a good time then to reorganize the bag. But it works nice to be able to clean everything up. And that's winter time's a nice time to go and do all this stuff. You're not out shooting every day. Yeah, Audrey.
Another good place to donate if you have things is the Urban Ecology Center. A lot of us are in the Milwaukee area, and they really can use that too, as well as this.
Yeah.
That's excellent too. So
yeah. Yep. No, it's I look for good places to donate stuff. My stuff is used up quite a bit, but it's usually good enough for a lot of students yet. And so if I can find somebody that can use it, that's great.
Jeff, I don't know if I missed this, but did you mention that to change your camera's copyright information?
Oh, no, I should have had that in there as well. Yeah, change your camera copyright information. That's a good spot too.
Since your camera is writing that, and at least most people's cameras will write copyright information right to those files, it's a good idea to set that up. This is the time of year, of course, to do that, since we just changed. And then put 2021 as your copyright dates.
Yep. Yep. I forgot about that one. I'll have to make a note and add that to my list. I do it for Lightroom. I just didn't think about it for the camera stuff. Good point. Anybody else do anything that I might have forgotten? Something to do on a cold winter day, especially going through and cleaning up your Lightroom catalog with old images. You probably can free up a lot of hard drive space.
I guess, Jeff, I just mentioned if you have a website, you want to change your copyright information in your footer on that as well.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Good. I'm glad you reminded me, because I got to do that for all the sites that I'm on.
I went through and did it to the 20 some odd sites that I maintained, so I've already done that for the year.
Yeah, yep. I haven't gotten to that yet. Anybody else have any suggestions or thoughts?
I'm exhausted just listening to your list, Jeff.
Yep. Yeah, I know what I'm doing the next 3 months. Plus, I've got a whole other set of projects to do, so I can't wait to get to all of it. And to clean up my camera bags. I always like reorganizing my camera bag. It's sort of relaxing. And I've just cleared off a whole big table for it. So I guess that's about it. I don't have anything else.
Yep, there is one in the Q&A.
Oh, did I miss something?
Yeah, Steve's got in there for copyright.
Oh, yeah.
You can submit images to the Copyright Office. You want to cover that one?
Yeah. If you want to be fully protected, you need to submit the images that you want to the Copyright Office. Now, it is copywritten as soon as you take the photo, but to be able to get better damages and to protect your images more, you need to submit it. Now, unfortunately, the Copyright Office has made it very difficult to submit large quantities of images. So I've actually stopped registering them with the Copyright Office, but at least if you put the copyright information on the images and you find somebody is using them without your permission, you have some recourse, and that's when you'd want to submit it to the Copyright Office to protect it even more.
Prior to starting your litigation.
Right, prior to starting your litigation.
All right, and now they did make some more photographer friendly rules that came out later part of last year. You can look that up and maybe we can include that in the next newsletters as far as that goes. But they kind of relax the overall requirements, but they also drop the damages quite a bit that we can actually recoup from that. Made it a little bit easier for us to go after somebody, but the big dollars aren't going to quite be there under this particular set of rules. That doesn't mean you can't still follow the original rules.
Right. Yeah, they've got a new in-house what would you call it? A group of people that will help you settle some of this stuff easier than having to get a big attorney and doing it a good way. There's some good points and bad points. They passed a whole bunch of copyright rules in with the last set of COVID money going out. They snuck a bunch of copyright information in there. And I'll see if I can pull some of what the new rules are, and we can discuss that in one of the future digital forum things. That probably would be a good one. I have to research it more. I've heard good and bad about what some of these rules are. I know Nampa's happy with it, and so are a few other places. So I guess it's good to a point, but we'll see how it actually ends up working in the long run.
I do know that there were a couple of lawyers out of New York that were discussing copyright law. And one of the things, there's always this question of should you put your signature on your photo? And some people say, well, that's really distracting and whatever. But one of the things these lawyers had said is if you put your name on the bottom or somewhere on that photo and somebody uses it, that shows intent. And that increases the amount of damages from a relatively small amount that you can get. And I can't remember if he said it was $50,000 or $100,000 that it goes up to, because it shows that they understood that was your photo and they had to remove that signature.
Right. Yeah, that certainly can help. Part of the amount of damages is also whether it was registered or not, is also in there.
Right, and that's fees and so on are covered under that, but this would automatically give you substantially more if you didn't copyright them, because most people do not. They don't spend the time, and that's really a hassle the way it's set up now.
Yeah, it is. I used to be able to copyright, 2,000, 5,000 pictures in one shot, and it cost me $55, and every quarter I would just upload a couple thousand images. Now you have to have every image labeled in a spreadsheet, and it's so much more work. And then they only limit it, I think, to a couple hundred images per copyright, $55. And so, it turned into something that I stopped doing it. I've never really found anybody that infringed on my copyrights, except I think once. And so I decided just having the stuff in the metadata was good enough. I hate the signatures on the bottom corner of the picture. I think it's distracting myself, but it's a good point. It is a way to prove that it's yours, and there was more intent to it.
So I put a link in the chat to an article from Petapixel that talks about this.
Okay, great.
I have a friend that's in Europe that's called photoclaim.com, and he's collecting, he's got a bank of lawyers that they're making quite a bit of money in Europe bringing legal cases against copyright information. They haven't made good inroads into the United States yet because of the copyright law here. But one of the biggest ways they can make money is not actually going to court, but in contacting businesses and companies that have taken and used your pictures. They contact them and get money for you as a photographer. They either ask to desist or pay up, and they actually have quite a bit of make quite a bit of money that way for photographers. So if you want to contact them and see about if you think there's photos of yours that have been stolen. That's a good way to try to get them to stop or make money off of them.
I know there's a number of places that you can. Nampa has I belong to the North America Nature Photographers Group, and they're big into copyright, and they have a couple of videos on showing you how you can check to see if any of your photos are being used. And you can do a Google search on it sometimes, and sometimes I found that a bunch of my photos were being used in Europe without my permission. I just never went through. And most of the time it's Google and Microsoft that are swiping photos from me. So I guess I should be honored, but I don't know if it was anything that I could really go after too easily. But we'll have to look at doing a copyright talk one of these days, especially with all the new rules out there. I'll do some research into it and see if we can find a few more people that know about copyright. Maybe I can find even an attorney that might talk about it a little bit. We'll see.
You know, I think one of the webinars we have on PSA website, although we can't play it during this, I think it was the gal that spoke at one of the conferences, I think Pittsburgh, regarding copyright law, and maybe that's somebody that we can
yeah. Yeah, I'll take a look and see. I can always reach out and see if they'd be willing to either come on or let us at least use the video. Maybe she'll let us use her video or something. So, great. Well,
yeah. One other question.
Yep.
You said something about plugging in your hard drives every now and then to recharge them. Does the pictures lose quality if they're sitting on a unplugged or uncharged disk drive?
The solid state hard drives, I had heard something that you should plug them in periodically to get refresh the charge on them. The spinning hard drives, I don't think there's a problem with that.
Okay,
I don't know if anybody's heard that or not. But
yeah,
that's what. Yeah.
I have a couple of USB hard drives that I put stuff on, and then I may not look at it for several months. And since there's nothing that stays active in it, they come up right away and they work.
I've had it where I've have one solid state hard drive that's my backup for my main computer. And I let that sit for a whole year because I generally don't re-back up. It's a major backup. And that one I found either got corrupted or something happened where it needed to be plugged in and electricity put through it again. And now it's working just fine. But it seems like maybe the solid states, I know there's a charge on them, and I thought I had heard that maybe once a year you need to possibly plug those in.
I'm just curious because everything's electronics, 0 or a 1, and if you lose a couple ones to a 0, what happens if discharge?
Yep. Yeah, it could. I think solid state is where you have to worry about it. The spinning drives you don't have to worry about. I've never had a problem. I've had spinning drives sitting in archive for a long time. It's the solid state ones that I think may need a charge to keep them going periodically. I'm not sure. I'll have to recheck that, but it's what I've heard. Anything else? We're about 10 minutes over, so I think we'll call it quits for today. I thank everybody for being here. Thank all the attendees that showed up, and hopefully I'll come up with something interesting for next month. If somebody has some ideas, please send them to me. I'm creating a list, and we'll keep going through them as we look for new ideas, and we'll see what may come out happens for next month. So
Thank you, Jeff. Very good meeting.
Thanks.
Great.
Nice to see everybody.
yeah, good
Jerry
seeing
Hines-
everybody,
Jerry Hines,
and we'll see you next month.
Bye.
Jerry
See ya.
Hines, Jerry Hines, stay on here for a minute with Jeff.